My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. Hey y'all! Today is such an exciting day because I'm filming a collaboration. This video is a collab with my beautiful friend Georgia Harris. She is such an inspiring presence here on YouTube, and I trust that all of you have already watched her series of videos about her recovery from shopping addiction over the course of this past year. I will leave them linked right at the top of my description box down below. In case you haven't, they'll be easily accessible. You can just click through from the description box underneath this video. Georgia is a true peach, and she is so OG to me here on YouTube. I was watching her channel long before I had a channel, and I think I've said this before on here, but her channel, her way of talking, her general vibe, that was one of the things that encouraged me to start my channel, because I was like, oh, there are real people out there. It's not all just like Jaclyn Hill craziness. Like, there are real, down-to-earth, beautiful, smart, cool, edgy, articulate people making YouTube videos. Georgia to me was evidence of that, and that made me think I might have a chance on this platform too. So I owe a lot to Georgia. I'm so grateful to call myself her friend. And if there are any of you out there watching me who aren't clued into her channel, you're in for a treat. Georgia and I have collabed before. We did an awesome video, actually. I felt like both of them were awesome. I mean, one of them was mine and one of them was Georgia, so of course I felt like both of them were awesome, but the video topic was makeup that I'm a sucker for. So each of us talked about characteristics of makeup that really tend to draw us in over and over. So I kind of talked about like bronze, eyeshadows, or when things are marketed as like dewy and glossy, I'm just a sucker for those things. And the idea behind that is also driving the idea behind this video, which is that when you know yourself and you know your compulsions and you know the kinds of things that tend to grab you and then make you blind to whether the purchase is actually a good one or not, when you know those things, it's a lot easier for you to catch yourself in the act. So the moral of the story is know thyself, be aware of whether you're actually making a smart choice or you're actually just being suckered by the same thing that always suckers you. So for this video, we decided to apply that question beyond makeup. So I have a list here of stuff that I'm a sucker for when it comes to just shopping in general. So clothes, homewares, knickknacks, any kind of just packaging or sales tactic or overall brand aesthetic, everything that I'm a sucker for outside of the realm of makeup. That's what I'm going to be covering in this video, and that's what Georgia is going to be covering in hers. I'm really excited to see what she shares, and I'm really excited to share my list with you. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. So this was quite interesting because when I was making my list, part of me felt like I was just making a list of like stuff that's gorgeous, like stuff that's badass, stuff that indicates that I have good taste, according to me, because of course, according to me, my taste is good. So I was making this list and I was like, yeah, why wouldn't anyone be a sucker for these things? These things are rad. This is a list that people should take when they go shopping for furniture or for clothes or whatever. I'm like all about my list. But at the same time, I see my weakness in this list, my weaknesses, and I see the ways in which the items on this list are a vehicle for me to kind of like indulge in projecting the fantasy of my identity. And it was that act that always got me into trouble with shopping before my no-buy year. So it's a little bit of some, a little bit of the other. I'll try to explain myself more thoroughly as I make my way through the list. So the first thing on the list will be really funny for those of you who watched my recent handbag declutter. I wrote that I'm a sucker for a pop of red or a pop of orange. And this is true everywhere. In fact, look at me today. I'm wearing one of my pops of red from my wardrobe. This kind of brilliant, shocking red-orange, whether it's more on the red side, sometimes even leaning into pink, or more on the orange side, that's my favorite accent color. And if you look over at my wardrobe, you see neutrals and pops of red or even fuchsia. And if you look at my home, that's what you see. You see my red couch behind me. What you don't know is over there, all of our coasters are red felt that match the couch. If you look over at my handbag shelf, when I decluttered my handbags, I was left pretty much exclusively with red and orange handbags, like 3 red handbags and a silver one, which was so amazing. But on that same shelf, if you watched that video, you would have seen this vase. I brought an example of one of my orange handbags to show, and it's all around the house. I'm just a total sucker for things that are in this color. And it ends up, this is where I kind of argue with myself. it ends up working well for me because I like that aesthetic. And I think that it's beautiful that in our home we're surrounded by these sort of relatively calm neutrals with pops of red. It really works for me. I feel like it's a good choice. I feel like pop of red was a good choice. Where it can get me into trouble is like if I hadn't done my handbag declutter and I decided to buy myself a handbag or ask for one as a gift for the Christmas holidays or something like that, I would have asked for another red one. If I hadn't ever paid enough attention to realize that I'm a sucker for this, and that means that I already have it in spades, I would have just continued to blindly always be drawn in and kind of be triggered to buy things in that color scheme because it's the thing that I'm a sucker for. So I feel like this is a perfect example of the way in which knowing your own taste and being in touch with taste and having taste, like having developed a preference for something, can be a good thing. It can contribute to a comfortingly beautiful aesthetic in your life, in your home. It can make you love your belongings more, and I'm all about that. But if you're not paying attention, if you're not listing them like Georgia and I are doing for this video, if you're not keeping track of yourself, then it can be like a runaway train and you can suddenly end up with pops of red taking over your whole life. So this second one is actually one that I feel like it's more important for me to check myself before I wreck myself with regards to preposition. Luxury basics and minimal design or minimalist design. I am such a sucker for what appears to be the best designed or the most modern looking version of any old standard thing. So for example, I've been looking at replacing my gooseneck kettle on the stove because I make pour over coffee and tea with it, and it's really important to me that the thermometer be correct, and the thermometer on ours is all out of whack, and so I've been looking for one that will be like really sturdy and last a long time. When I look online and I look up gooseneck kettles for a gas range, most of them look mundane, and then there's like one or two that are just gorgeous. They look like museum pieces. It's like it looks like an ostrich egg, but really it's a hot water kettle. It looks like a piece of rebar, but really it's a hot water kettle. Like there are these sculptural modern pieces, or it's like 100% monochromatic. That's another thing that really gets me with homewares, things like a kitchen kettle, or it's like an unusual color and it's all monochromatic, like it's all mint green and absolutely every single part of it is mint green, and so it just looks like this black hole of mint green in your life. And I'm just like, I want that in my life because that will make me cool. It will make me seem cooler than I am. And when people come over and they see my modernist hot water kettle, they'll be like,
wow, Hannah is cooler than I even thought she was.
That's where the ego comes into it. That's where the compulsion to try to project my identity by picking really, really specific items to surround myself with, that's where that comes into play. The smartest thing for me to do would be to choose the hot water kettle that has the highest rating in terms of function. The one that has a lifetime guarantee for the calibration of its thermometer, or the one that's big enough so that I know that it will heat enough hot water without spurting out the tip, which is what the one that we have. That's another problem with the one that we already have. It's pretty much on its last legs. The smart thing for me to do, the intelligent thing as a consumer, as someone who isn't wealthy, the thing to do would be to find the one that I can most easily afford, that's the highest rated in terms of function. But I am a sucker for the one that looks the prettiest, and not just the prettiest, but the most unique, the weirdest, the most unusual. I want to make an unusual and aesthetic choice, and I tend to get drawn into these like sculptural homewares. And in my experience, they usually don't work the best. Like if you're at IKEA and you're choosing between the pepper grinder that looks like a pepper grinder and the pepper grinder that looks like a stack of chicken eggs, you pick the one that looks like a stack of chicken eggs because you're like me and you're a sucker for minimalist, modernist design with smooth edges, that one's probably gonna break in 6 months. It just is. In my experience, it just is. And if you actually find a pepper grinder that looks like a stack of chicken eggs and it's good enough quality not to break in 6 months, then you're buying it at the museum shop at the MoMA and it costs $600. So it's a good thing that I am aware that I'm a sucker for luxury basics. And when I say luxury basics, I kind of mean like staples in the home, staples in my wardrobe, but having those staples be like really high-end feeling or really special in terms of their design. Luxury basics and intensely minimalist or sculptural design. It's good that I know that I'm a sucker for those things so that I can stop myself in the act and be like, Hannah, is this really the best choice? Or are you doing that thing again? Third on my list might also have been on my makeup list, but it extends to everything in my life, and that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, is texture. I am a sucker for texture in everything, and I talk about it in makeup all the time. It's like texture, texture, texture. My name is Hannah and this is my texture year. I did talk a little bit about this with regards to my wardrobe in that video where I unboxed my winter sweaters, the ones that had been packed up over the summer, and tried them on and mixed them and matched them with other things that are in my wardrobe. I talked about how when you wear like a really chunky forest green sweater and khaki green faux leather pants, even though it's just green on green and it's a pretty neutral outfit in terms of color, the texture makes it editorial. Words to live by, texture makes it editorial. And if you look at my closet, it is extremely texturally diverse. But it also extends to homewares. I'm really, like when I was looking for a rug to put underneath my filming space, I was like, I want a really thick rug. And I did get a really thick rug, and I'm really glad that I did that. I'm really glad I held out until I found a rug that was really, really thick and plushy, the rug of my dreams, that was within my price range. I'm really glad that I did that because every time I step on it, it makes me feel good. And I knew that that would be true because I'm a sucker for texture. So there is something to be said about knowing yourself and then applying that knowledge. But I'm glad that I'm not running around trying to get like more shaggy pillows for our bed and being like, I don't have enough texture. We need to get another wall hanging. We need to get, you know what I mean? Like I'm not letting myself feel like I'm deprived of texture in my life and there's not enough, which is what old Hannah was always doing. Old Hannah was always trying to like layer more and more textured homewares into her home, into my space, her home, who am I? My space. And I was always trying to layer more and more textured stuff into my wardrobe. I was just always hungry for more. I felt like I could never get enough. I'm not like that anymore, thank goodness. What I do now is I think about texture when it actually is time to buy something because I know that it's something that will continue to make me happy because I'm a sucker for it. This is loosely related, metallic or mirrored anything. Anything that's just like covered in mirrors or hyper metallic. I took out this Urban Decay powder to show you. This is a new packaging of the Stay Naked range, and it's mirrored. It's like a gold, it's just like a regular gold packaging, but then it has this like mirrored logo on it. And every time I look at this, I'm like, I'm just a total sucker for that. And it's Urban Decay. I'm not even really like an Urban Decay girl. It's not, there's nothing about the brand that I feel like resonates with me particularly, but this packaging, it totally gets me going. And I dream of having like a desk that, you know, those pieces of furniture that you see that are just like all mirrored all over the legs, all over the surface, and even like a vanity or like a chair, a side table, I guess a side table or a coffee table. Like if I could just switch out almost all of my furniture for fully mirrored furniture, I would do that. And we do have a number of, not a number, but there are a couple of places in our home where we've made that choice. I feel like you can't really see it very well, but the lamp that has the swan shade on it is like a mercury bulbed lamp that's very reflective. I think that it's adjacent to my love of texture. If there's plushness in a space or in a wardrobe, and then there's also metallic shine and hardness and curves in a wardrobe, the contrast of those in a wardrobe or in a home, the contrast of those two things together to me makes it feel exquisite. And I even want to say makes it feel luxury or makes it feel high end, but it doesn't always cost a lot of money to acquire those kinds of things. Mirrored furniture is very expensive, but you can sometimes find a mirrored lamp or a mercury glass lamp at a thrift shop or on sale at Home Goods or something like that. And then if you know yourself, if you, like me, if you sort of know that that's something that you keep an eye out for and that you're a sucker for it, then you can sometimes make a judicious choice to add that kind of element into your space or into your home. For me, when I actually am in the market for things like furniture that can run hundreds and hundreds of dollars, that's when it's important for me to check myself and to be like, Hannah, you're not in a position right now in your life to afford a mirrored desk. So even though it's the prettiest one, and even though to you it's 5 times prettier and 5 times better than any of the other ones, any of the ones that you actually can afford, that's just because you're a sucker for it, and that doesn't mean that it has to be that one. It doesn't mean that you can't let it go. That's why it's important for me to be able to keep myself in my own sights when it comes to my taste and my compulsions. Okay, this next one I'm actually really excited to talk about: figurative anything. So faces, bodies, and animals too. This is human figures and animal figures. I have said this before, but almost all of the art in our house is faces. Like almost everything. If you look around, you see figures, faces, animal faces, masks. We have like a whole collection of wall hanging masks. And it's not just our art, but I brought this to show you. This is one of my cheese knives. I bought this set of cheese knives. There's this one, which is a bird, and then I think there's one that's a lion, and then I can't remember what the third one is, but it's like 3 cheese knives that are little animals. And I bought them on super, super, super sale at Anthropologie ages ago. It was like they went on half price and then half of half price off or something after the holidays one year, probably like 5 years ago or something. And I had to have them because of the animal figures. I was like, those are the cheese knives of my life. And once again, as I was explaining with the like egg-shaped kettle, I didn't care whether they would be effective or not. Luckily, they're relatively effective. You know, a cheese knife is a cheese knife, right? It's just like, it just has to cut cheese. It's like not that, it's not that complicated. I think my failing in that moment was to choose form way over function. And because I'm a sucker for figurative things, when it comes to homewares or even clothing, like my sweater that I recently bought, the Piero sweater from Paloma Wool that has the face on it, that's a perfect example. I'm a total sucker for faces, figurative drawing, figurative shapes, anything that represents a human or animal form. And that's totally why I fell for that sweater. It's because there's a whole room in the mansion of my taste that's devoted to figurative things. But it's when I find myself choosing form over function, being really drawn into something and obsessed with something because it's figurative and overlooking how well it will perform for me. When I find myself doing that, that's when I'm like, Hannah, hold it, you're a sucker for this. Watch yourself. And then the other occasion on which I do that, similar to the other things on this list, is when I find myself eliding over the fact of the cost of the item because it's figurative and feeling like I just have to have it because it fits that aspect of my taste. That's another case in which I often put the brakes on and I just let the thing go, even though it's shaped like a giraffe. Moving on, dramatic proportions. I am a total sucker for dramatic proportions. And you would think that this means clothes. So huge ruffles out to here, huge hats, and really wide leg pants, but a really tight shirt, or a really puffy oversized sweater, but really tight leggings and tiny shoes. Like I love it when there's incredibly contrasting dramatic proportions. I am all about that. I even feel like I do this with makeup or even with hair. I'll put like I have a really, I don't know how well you can see it in terms of the angle on the camera, but if you were to see me in real life, you would be like, what's going on with that girl's bun? Is she using it for storage? Is she keeping a snack in there for later? Like, it's just ridiculous. It's a little bit ridiculous. And I always do that with proportions. I'm always like pushing it until it's a tiny bit ridiculous. I tend to do it with my eyes and even maybe with cheeks, draping on my cheeks, and definitely with clothes. You'll see me in like those huge ruffled shoulders and stuff like that. But I also do it with homewares. So this lamp behind me is a desk lamp style lamp. It's exactly in the style of like that Pixar, you know, that iconic Pixar lamp, the iconic spring-loaded lamp that sits on a desk. And then Pixar used it for their logo, you know, that little lamp that goes like, this is a replica of that lamp, but it's like 6 feet tall. It's like a full standing floor lamp replica of that. So it's a ridiculous, oversized version of a lamp, and it's got this proportional drama about it. And that's why I bought it. Back when I bought it, which was years ago, I think I got it at World Market. I'm sure it's not available anymore. I get questions about it sometimes. I bought it at World Market probably like 4 years ago, and I don't know if it's possible to track it down. But when I bought it because I'm a total sucker for oversized and dramatic proportions. It wasn't because it was the one that would go best with our furniture or would fit in the spot that I had for it. It wasn't because of any of those things. It was because that's something that I'm a sucker for. And once again, it is a matter of taste. I like my taste, and I like that I found something that fits my taste, and I think my taste is sound. But these days, I don't let myself get suckered into buying things that have dramatic proportions when there's not another good reason to buy them. That can't be the only reason, because otherwise I would by dramatic proportions stuff myself out of house and home. This one might go pretty quickly. I'm a total sucker for edgy, drapey, modern clothes, like drop crotch pants and asymmetric tunics that go down to here and stuff that scarfs around your neck, and you just basically look like a fashion forward, textural, cloth swathed lady who walks on the beach. I really love looking like that, but I have to rein in my tendency to get suckered into that kind of aesthetic because it's not my only aesthetic. And I think that if I were building an entire wardrobe just out of that, then it would make a little bit more sense for me to invest in more pieces like that. You know, like Rick Owens type stuff, Black Crane, like that kind of thing. I do have pieces in my wardrobe that suit that aesthetic because I'm a sucker for it. But I also like stuff like this, and I also like my fuchsia ruffled eyelet blouse, and I also like that really cute sweater with the face on it. You know what I mean? Like I have these different facets. If I were to get too suckered into my compulsion to buy edgy, drapey, modern clothes, a lot of them would kind of go unworn or wouldn't fit with the rest of what I have. It's sort of this like version of my fantasy self that I know I can't let it run out of control because there's more to me than just that. But I am a total sucker for those kinds of things. I think that there's something about like the chicness and simplicity, minimalism, edginess. I wish that that were me. Part of me wishes that everything in my home was shaped like an egg. All of my clothes were just cream colored wool, like all of them, including the bras. And that was just me all the time, that all I did was like walk on the beach swathed in cream colored wool and maybe some cream colored linen. And then all my walls were cream colored, and floors and bed linens and Joe and Sadie were also cream colored. Like Kim Kardashian and Kanye West's house. Have you ever seen like a picture of the interior of their house? That's what it looks like. Everything is cream colored and egg shaped and concrete, and that's just it. It's like very, very minimal and museum-like. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. And when I feel myself about to spend money because I'm a sucker for that kind of thing, I have to pull myself up quite short and remind myself that I'm not Kim Kardashian or Kanye West, and that's not my house and that's not my life. And so it might not actually be worth buying the thing, whatever the thing is. So the second to last thing I have here is scents, candles, home diffusers, perfumes, anything that promises to engulf me in a comforting and cozy new scent, because I feel like scents have this promise of being so life improving. And when you're in the store and you smell them, they're very emotional. Scents are very emotionally triggering. And in a strange way, above everything else, sometimes they can really make me feel like I'll be a new woman if I smell a different way, or if my home smells a different way, my experience of being in my home will be transformed. And of course, what I've learned since my no-buy year is that nothing transforms the experience of being in my home except me working on myself. You can't transform the experience of being in your life by buying stuff. In fact, the only thing that transformed that experience for me was ceasing to buy stuff for a whole year and then slowly reincorporating. So I've learned to be a little bit wary of how easily I am suckered in by candles and scents and diffusers and all these things. I try to remember that even though smelling a good smell smells good and it can make you feel really good, that's the end of it. It can make you feel good in sort of a lovely but superficial way. I try not to let myself get tricked into thinking it's going to transform my life, or even subconsciously, emotionally feel like it's going to transform my life, because it's not. And similarly, I think then this last one, when I am out shopping, just browsing or shopping for someone else, or even like at the grocery store or just randomly at Nordstrom Rack because I need a sports bra or something like that, it's really easy for me to get suckered in by softness and coziness and the promise of comfort. So this frequently applies to like loungewear, sweatpants, sweatshirts, even leggings, just anything that sort of gives this impression of like, oh, I'm a model off duty and I'm so cozy because I worked out and now I'm just sitting here drinking a smoothie and I'm just wrapped in a cloud. Like that state of being wrapped in a cloud and just being like so cozy and just warm and comfy. And then it can also be like blankets, slippers, socks, scarves, like anything that makes you feel like coziness and relaxation is going to be absorbed into your identity via that thing. or anything that kind of feels like it gives me an excuse to just wrap myself up and feel cozy inside of it, like a robe. I used to have a really big problem over buying robes, and I had to declutter my robes. I did it a while back, I think, before I even started my channel, but I think now I'm down to three. Three robes, like too many for one person who lives in such a small space and has such a small space to store like towels and robes and clothes and stuff like that. But I'm still always wanting to buy more. I'm a sucker for a robe, but a robe I feel like is emblematic of this entire concept of softness and comfort and relaxation. I'm just a sucker for things that promise that. And that is it. Those are all the things I'm a sucker for. I hope that this was entertaining, and I hope that it wasn't too weird to hear me kind of like push-pulling between being appreciative of my list, because I am. I love metallic mirrored things. I love pops of red and orange, and I'm not ashamed that those things are to my taste, and I'm not ashamed of the things that I own because of my taste. I just think that it is important to take one's own taste with a grain of salt and to understand that there's a line between the acquisition of a beautiful thing being a good choice because it makes you feel those feelings and it rings your bells, and then the acquisition of a beautiful thing not necessarily being the right choice, even though it makes you feel those feelings and it rings your bells. That line is quite fine, and I think it is fruitful to talk about it, and I hope it was fruitful to hear me talk about it. Georgia, thank you so much for collabing with me. I'm so proud of everything that you have achieved this year. I'm so glad that you're back making videos on YouTube. It's such a joy to watch you, and I just love being connected. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And thank you all so much for watching. And Georgia and everyone, don't forget to take extra good care of yourselves this week so that you can be the most effective versions of yourselves as you do your work in the world.